Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. So I've just had a look through the confirmed undercard for the Joseph Parker Hughie Fury fight in Manchester on September 23rd. That's when Parker's WBO strap is on the line. So the undercard, one word for me sums it up: underwhelming. Underwhelming, it really is. Now, I was used to some of the pedestrian Parker cards that Duco Events put on in New Zealand, and they were charging $39 to $59 for the privilege. But being that this particular fight was going to be in the UK, or is in the UK, I should say, and Duco having ceded some of the promotional duties to Mick Hennessy and co., I had some optimism that we'd have a very decent card. Remember, in the UK, boxing is going off at the moment. There are plenty of good fights to be made. So let's go through the card. So we have British bantamweight champion Josh Wale. He'll defend his title against Don Broadhurst. Lightweight Joe Murray, who is from Manchester, is up against Matty Fagan in an eliminator for the British title. Super welterweights Peter McDonough and Shane Singleton, they'll square off. Jimmy Kelly, he's also a 154-pounder. He'll fight a yet-to-be-determined opponent. Worth noting, his last opponent had 145 losses on their record. So bantamweight Haroon Khan, he will also be on the card, as will heavyweight prospect Con Sheehan, no opponent currently listed. Completing the card will be light heavyweight Craig Bunn, Middleton welterweight Liam Taylor, Manchester heavyweight Lee Carter Bolton, super middleweight Jake Kilganoon, and Blackburn light heavyweight Mickey Ellison. Now, admittedly, I don't follow a lot of the lighter weights, especially below about 140, but really I've only heard of a couple of those guys, Con Sheehan and Haroon Khan in particular. But even then, it's not like they've achieved anything stellar in their careers or anything monumental yet. So the question I'm asking myself is, where are the household names? Or at least some fights the public can really get their teeth into and get interested in. Because from what I just read from the list of fights that are on the card, that's few and far between. As we know, the idea of Joseph Parker and Hughie Fury carrying the show just on the strength of their own current profiles, that's probably not going to work. They don't have massive profiles. Parker in New Zealand, sure, but the fight's not in New Zealand. It's in the UK. Hughie Fury, he's an up-and-coming heavyweight. He doesn't have a massive profile. Parker's profile in the UK, well, for me, from what I hear, it's not great. So both of these guys, they're still really coming up in the division. It just happens that Parker, he's had a slice or two of luck along the way and picked up a belt. But outside of New Zealand, he's not a massive draw yet. So I would have figured, and this is just me as a fan, thinking in terms of the event, if their profiles aren't massive and they need a little help to sell that card, get people interested, get them enticed in the fights, wouldn't you have some juicy and enticing fights on the undercard? Really stack it. But damn, there is a lot of fights on there. They've stacked the card, but the quality, I don't know if it's really there. There have been some murmurings, you're probably aware of them as well, that the fight hasn't been selling so well and not as fast as the promoters would like. So I'm not sure how these lackluster undercard fights, and that's what they are for me, it is a little bit lackluster. How are these fights going to help that situation? I guess we do have to take into account, remembering that Parker and Fury are taking home pretty decent paychecks. From memory, the winning purse bid which Duco had was just over $3 million US. So that was for the first false start, and there was a 60-40 split in Parker's favour. So if indeed that has been carried over, I can see why, or even if it is close to that, maybe if it is at a reduced level, still these guys are taking home some decent paychecks. So I could see why they would want to go a little bit cheaper. But, there's a risk here that undercard is so underwhelming, and Parker and Fury may not be able to sell the fight as, say, a Dillian White and Jarrell Miller type, who really get into it, build up the hype, that sort of thing. Parker and Fury don't kind of have some of the, they don't have Anthony Joshua hype behind them. So, I'm sure we're going to hear the promoters and those involved in it saying, yeah, it's top quality, rah, rah, rah. But, I'm not falling for that. I'm not sure, even if you're a hardcore Parker fan, you're probably not falling for that. I mean, are you clamouring for any of those fights? I mean, for me, the only one that I really want to see just by looking at that list is to sort of see how Con Sheehan is sort of shaping up. But even then, I mean, how much am I going to learn about him, seeing him knock over a bum/journeyman? So I'm going to be very interested to see how packed the Manchester Arena is on September 23rd. I'm sure they're also banking on the fact that Joseph Parker's loyal fan base will help book the fight back in New Zealand on pay-per-view. As we know, the pay-per-view numbers, apparently, well, I mean, we never really get the numbers, but they're generally pretty strong back in New Zealand. But then again, we pay a pretty penny for them. And just on that, usually the UK fights that are broadcast out, to New Zealand on pay-per-view, those cards are about $34.95. So I wonder if New Zealand fans will get it at that price. I would argue if we get to see a stacked Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko card at that price, why can't we see it at that price? Cynically, I just think, well, they're automatically, because it's Joseph Parker, it's a captured market, they know we want to see it. We're going to have to drop 50 to 60 for what relatively is, besides the Parker-Fury fight, a thin card. So a bit of food for thought there. What do you make of it? I don't think we're going to see any discount for New Zealand fans. It probably will be $49.95 or $59.95. I would be shocked if it was $34.95. But, yeah, tell me what you think about this undercard. Do you think you'll be entertained by it? Because at the end of the day, isn't that what this is about? Isn't that why we have the undercard? Because we want to have some good fights and a good build-up to the main fight? Let me know. I'm out.